My name is Okafor. I am the founder of Trubel&Co, and I want to tell you about my plan for sparking worldwide trouble. But first, let's start with the map. Raise your hand if you've used a map in the past 48 hours. Most of us, right? I love maps. I've deemed myself as the map guy. But maps are pretty ubiquitous. They're everywhere, from figuring out how do you get to this beautiful building that we're in today, where are my AirPods and where in the house did I leave them, to, wow, it is raining nonstop across the bay. We are using maps to make so many little decisions because maps are inherently powerful. Decisions, big and small, maps are guiding our lives, from which way is the state going to swing during a pivotal election, to understanding our history of redlining and how this has guided different decisions, to what do we do in the case of an emergency, as we saw in North Carolina with Hurricane Helen. These maps are ultimately just pieces of visualized data, and data drives decision making. But what happens when we realize that that data is inherently powerful? We're here in San Francisco where we understand that information has so much power, but that power isn't always distributed. And sometimes that power is in the hands of the few. In the past year, we've seen the example of when data is misheld and abused. In the past year, we've seen examples where critical data sets are deleted, where misinformation is spreading, and when technology assets are deployed in communities with disastrous effects. But I come to you with a simple dream of what happens when the people who are closest to society's problems have the data and the tools to tackle it. That's what good trouble looks like. And so I come to you with a vision of data-powered communities and community-powered data. And I want to show you some examples of that good trouble. Good trouble can look like crowdsource information about where is wildfire spreading in my communities, and how do we do something to make sure this is targeted effectively. Good trouble looks like crowdsourcing data about how do I escape crippling hospital debt when I'm at my most vulnerable and protect myself and my loved ones. Good trouble looks like ensuring that I have the resources to make sure that my basic needs are met and our community members have access to food in our locations. I was called a troublemaker as a kid. My dad's an engineer, my mom's an educator, so I grew up wanting to build cool stuff that helped people. But growing up, I realized that innovation and equity were siloed. In the classroom, this was quite literal. I could go into one classroom and learn technical skills, or I'd go to a separate classroom, completely separated, and learn how society works. Ultimately, we had to make a decision. These were separate rooms with separate people, which essentially put us on separate tracks. And so I did what every socially conscious engineer does after graduation, which is I joined management consulting. There at BCG, I had access to dozens of data scientists at my disposal to help those same few and powerful make decisions and maximize profits. When I later went into nonprofit work, we barely used Excel. That's when I understood the data deficit, that 75% of nonprofits and impact work say that data literacy is a challenge. They don't have access to the tools, they don't have the training, and they can't find the time. I firmly believe that increased data would mean increased impact. So I took everything that I learned from BCG, Google, and Stanford, asked a few folks for money, and I was able to build Trubel&Co, an opportunity to use civic tech education to close the data divide. Here, we're building a community digital platform that mobilizes youth and communities to leverage local data to tackle the issues that they care about. Using open source curriculum and virtual workshops, we've been able to build local capacity at nonprofits nationwide. We are showing youth how they can gain real-world skills that helps the community and gets them a job, tackling the issues that they care about. And we are helping organizers supercharge their advocacy. This is technical education with a purpose for a workforce that's building for good. Take one of our earliest troublemakers, Shun. He had a simple question. He looked around his hometown of Philly and saw that there are a lot of fast food places near his high school, so he turned to data to see if it was a pattern. There, he was able to map all of the high schools in Philly and map the healthy locations the healthy locations against the fast food locations. Turns out, he saw that Black and brown schools were not only disproportionately affected, but those schools had lower academic performance. He saw something that he already felt using data, that race, class, and where you live shapes what you get. But that's just one of the thousands of troublemakers that we've worked with to use data for purpose. And they're leveraging the power of where. And this question of where is something inherently that guides so many decisions as how we move about life. Where has the most harm been done? Where can my resources go the furthest? And where can we make our community a better place? That's the power of where, is that when you start asking these decisions, the next step is action. Our students are using this work to write to their congressperson, to rally their friends together, and build digital apps and tools to make their community a better place. The communities that we work with often don't have the power to tell their own stories. And so we just ask them, what should people know about your neighborhood? And what story do you want to tell? They are telling stories about how vulnerable folks and what can they do when there's extreme weather, be it fires or floods. They are understanding how can we distribute access to green space, and how do we make sure that high class isn't a prerequisite to access to parks. To understanding how can data help tell us a story about how to make our community safer for all of the residents. Our troublemakers are turning data into stories and stories into action. But you're probably wondering, what is my plan for worldwide trouble? Well, that starts where this journey first started, which is in the classroom. And we have a dream of making every classroom a site for data civics, where students can use data and technology to tackle the issues that they care about the most. In the past few years, we've trained thousands of troublemakers around the country with select partners in order to build this skill set, but we don't want it to be restricted to the workshops that we provide. We're in this pivotal moment right now, where we're translating our direct service learnings over the past few years and building scalable tech platforms that can go to classrooms nationwide. Hence, Civicscape, our new app where we are using generative AI to bring about data civics education that's tied to your subject, standards, and community. With this work, teachers, no matter their background, can reduce the barriers of time of figuring out how they can use data civics to drive this work. We're supporting place-based learning to make learning and curriculum place-based, locally centered, and driving engagement and curiosity, and it's filling this critical gap within data literacy that schools don't have the opportunity to fill. Teachers bring in, their needs, be it I am teaching 8th grade environmental science, we are teaching biomes this week, and my school has this focus and these standards. You can bring in other student needs and what they're interested in, say, hey, we're based in Oakland, let's explore data and maps in our own neighborhood. Or you bring in external factors and shifts. Maybe all of your students are talking about the Benito Bowl, and you want to make it culturally relevant to something that'll get them really excited. Using this system, they're able to make sure that we are adapting to those tools and those interests, and then it generates the activities in minutes to where teachers can bring in data civics into their classroom. Students then go and investigate these issues right in the classroom, and as they iterate and build these skills and this literacy and technical and civics, this all leads to action. We don't believe that data literacy is restricted to just becoming a data scientist. Ultimately, this is a path of understanding your community and gaining the skills to make it a better place. A lot of teachers say that this is really interesting. They're getting pushed to bring data into the classroom, but most don't have the tools or the resources or support to do that. Civicscape is filling that gap. No matter your classroom, this is relevant. If you're in a math class, maybe you're calculating risk probability. If you're in a science class, this is taking the phenomenon that's in books and seeing how it's relevant to your backyard. In an English class, you're learning how to bring in data to build evidence in your narrative. And in a social studies class, you're bringing history to life and understanding how history affects your present. Our curriculum has proven impact over the years, and we've been able to show how this curriculum can not only build technical skills and get them economic access, but it's building curiosity and engagement about what's happening, as well as critical thinking skills. And this is our plan for closing the data divide. You don't need a PhD to do data science. We're upskilling everyday people with the skills to make their community a better place using data, design, and technology. We are building this platform right now, and we're co-designing it with teachers and students to make sure it's classroom ready, with a plan of scaling across K-12 networks around the country. We're currently raising $1 million in order to build this platform, manage some operations, and evaluate the process, and invite you all to be a part of this mission. I firmly believe that data doesn't belong to the powerful. It belongs to all of us. And with all of your support, we can spark good trouble where it's needed most. Thank you so much.